saw the look on my parents' faces, and I thought, we're screwed. My dad's standing there on crutches, and then I did make a connection with a higher power that saved my butt talks. And I thought, that's insane.
There are moments in life that become our landmarks, not because we recognize them when they happen, but because years later, when we look back, we can see that everything seemed to branch from there. Maybe it was a conversation, or a loss you never saw coming. Maybe it was a decision made in a single moment, or maybe it was a Christmas morning at 5 years old. Years later, that little boy would find himself standing at the edge of the Appalachian Trail, preparing for a journey most people half his age would never attempt. But first, there was a lifetime that led him there. For Timmerman, one of the earliest moments isn't wrapped in holiday magic. It's wrapped in the reality of a family trying to survive. A family shaped by war, illness, and sacrifice. A life that was shaped by circumstances that would leave a mark long before he understood what those marks meant. Welcome to Change Happened, Then What? I'm your host, Heather Holt, and this is part 1 of Timmerman's story.
I'm 5 years old. It's Christmas Day, and there's a Christmas tree in our living room, and there's only one thing under it, and that is a pedal car that I know my dad got from the dump and brought it home and was surreptitiously working on it for weeks to make it work, and he polished, he painted it, made it look like new and everything. And my sister, who was 3, is bawling her eyes out, and my brother Ron, who liked the trail with me, is just kind of standing there, and that's the only present. And I saw the look on my parents' faces, and I thought, we're screwed. My dad's standing there on crutches, and I could just tell that they were devastated, because my sister cried the whole day because she wanted a doll.
It's a remarkable memory, not because of what was under the tree, but because of what wasn't. Security, certainty, the feeling that the adults had everything under control. At 5 years old, Rand could already see the worry on his parents' faces. He could already feel the weight of what they were carrying. And that weight had started years before he was born, before that Christmas morning, and before they ever became a family.
And the problem was, my dad came home from World War II as a Mustang pilot. My mom was engaged to a young man that went in the Army before that, and he died on Omaha Beach, June 6, 1944, or I wouldn't be here. So that's an irony, but when my dad came back, they fell in love.
Rand's father wasn't just a pilot. He was what the military calls a Mustang pilot. A Mustang officer is someone who begins their career as an enlisted service member and later earns a commission as an officer. In military culture, that distinction carries a great deal of respect because it means they've lived both sides of military life. They've followed orders and they've given them. For Rand's father, that journey eventually led him into the cockpit during World War II. History often feels distant, something that happens to other people in other places. But sometimes history sits at the kitchen table with you. Rand grew up surrounded by people who had lived through war. Men who rarely spoke about what they had seen. Men who simply just carried it.
My whole family was a warrior family. I didn't realize at the time, really didn't kind of sink in, but all my uncles except one were in World War II. One was a belly gunner on a B-17, and he did his 50 missions, and the next crew died on their first flight out. They didn't talk about it much. That was kind of the culture. You served your country no matter what.
The war ended, but there was another battle waiting, one that would change the course of Rand's family forever.
Dad came back and got polio and ended up in the Children's Hospital in Utica, New York, by some miracle, and he spent 8 months in an iron lung because he couldn't breathe. He was paralyzed from the neck down.
For listeners who may not be familiar with it, before there was widespread vaccination, polio was one of the most feared diseases in America. Some people recovered, others were left with lifelong disabilities, and many never came home at all. But Rand's father, he survived, but that survival came at a cost.
And Heather had two, I just found this out a few years ago, because my sister is kind of our historian, back to Forever and some of those other resources. Anyway, discovered he had two cousins. One was 19, the other was 20, I think, got polio and died the same day. People don't realize. I mean, our little village of 2,500 people, I knew everybody, and there was probably 100 people that had polio.
His father lived, but the effects followed him home, and they followed the family for decades.
So my dad was a hardworking man, but he, being crippled from the waist down, he flew again. He ended up getting some airplanes, but we were very poor, and I can't even imagine what the medical bills were. But I mean, I didn't even get my first clothes somebody else had worn out until I was a teenager.
Poverty, it leaves its own kind of memory, not always dramatic or obvious. Sometimes it shows up in hand-me-down clothes, in the opportunities you don't have, and sometimes in the quiet belief that everyone else got a different start than you did.
So I had a huge resentment against being poor, and I got involved in scouts. I got involved in anything I could to get out of the house because, I was usually with my dad if I wasn't in school or someplace because, I was his gopher. And he was a very hardworking man, and, we got by, but...
There is something else happening here, too. Something easy to miss. The same boy who resented the circumstances was learning endurance, responsibility, work ethic, and the habit of showing up. The lessons, they weren't glamorous, but they were quietly becoming part of who he was. Lessons that would eventually carry him through places far more dangerous than a small town in New York. Because as Rand grew older, he found himself searching for something he couldn't quite name. A way forward, a place to belong, and a sense that his life was headed somewheres.
I went off to college trying to make, some kind of a career.
Like so many young adults trying to build a life on their own, Rand left home carrying equal parts hope and uncertainty. He wanted something different, a future that felt bigger than the one he'd known growing up. But finding your place in the world isn't always a straight path. Sometimes it's a series of jobs, late nights, wrong turns, and trying to become someone before you've figured out who that someone is.
Kept changing my major. Third semester, I changed it to psychology because I knew I was a nut job. What the hell was wrong with me? I couldn't get focused on. I was working as a janitor from midnight to 8 o'clock in the morning, 5 days a week in my old high school, actually. And then I was a pin setter in a bowling alley before automatic pin setters, if you can believe that.
I love it.
Selling Amway on the weekends, and I got no money.
He was working, studying, trying to build a future, trying to figure out who he was. But underneath it all, something else was quietly becoming a part of his story. Alcohol.
The good news about that, Heather, was I made a conscious decision that first time I went home drunk and told my father about the next day that I would never do drugs because, why would I? It was such an amazing experience for a kid like me, I knew it was going to be my best buddy for a while anyway, but I also knew it could be a problem. I wasn't careful because I just liked it way too much. Other things, it didn't really become a problem until I got my late 50s, early 60s, but it was always there.
Sometimes the things that hurt us don't arrive looking dangerous. Sometimes they arrive looking helpful, comforting, reliable. And for a young man still trying to understand himself, alcohol felt less like a problem and more like a companion. Then, one morning, everything changed. Not after years of planning or careful consideration, just a radio broadcast and a decision.
I don't know, my third semester, I got drunk one night, and the next morning I'm on the pool table when the owner comes back in to clean up the place. I'm there all by myself. Turned on the radio, and they were talking about 1st Marine Division going into Vietnam. This is in February of 1966. And I'm 20 years old, and I'm clueless. And I got off that pool table, walked out of that bar, and left Oswego. And a month later, I'm in the War Memorial in Syracuse, New York, pledging to serve my country against enemies, foreign and domestic. And I'm on a bus ride to South Carolina, Parris Island, for boot camp in the United States Marine Corps.
As you've already heard, this wasn't the first time military service had entered Rand's story. His father served, his uncle served, but understanding war and living through it are two very different things.
Yep, and then, this happened, and then what? Well, then what? It was like 9 months later, I'm in a rice paddy in Vietnam going, I think I screwed up.
There are moments when reality arrives all at once. One day you're imagining adventure, the next you're standing in the middle of a war wondering, how did I get here?
Hoorah!
Big time!
Hoorah is a phrase woven deeply into Marine culture. Part battle cry, part acknowledgement, part expression of determination. Depending on the moment, it can mean, I understand, let's go, or simply, we're in this together. And decades later, many Marines still use it as naturally as saying hello. Vietnam would become one of the many experiences that shaped the course of Rand's life.
So I'm in the Marine Corps. I'm getting, I don't know, I like to say I've almost got killed probably 20 times at least. I volunteered for stuff. I was a machine gunner on a helicopter for a while. My brother did that. Alcoholics get bored pretty easily. Even in the military, especially in the military, when your options are I can wander around in the jungle all day and night, or they ask me to volunteer and then I can be a machine gunner on a helicopter and they got warm food and cots and an NCO club. I think I'll do that.
Sometimes people survive because they're careful. Sometimes because they're lucky. And other times they survive despite making decisions that years later seem impossible to explain. For Rand, Vietnam became another chapter in a life that already seemed to attract risk. Then something unexpected happened. Something that would alter the decision of his life long after the war ended.
The last couple of months in Vietnam, they made me what they called a Mustang lieutenant. I was a corporal, and they said, you're going to be a lieutenant because we want you to run around and do lieutenant stuff. And then I'm leaving, and this colonel came and said, well, you're going to be a corporal again. You can go back and get out, or I'm recommending they send you to OCS and be an officer candidate school.
Now, earlier, we learned that Rand's father had been a Mustang pilot. Now, Rand is becoming something familiar, a Mustang lieutenant. Like his father, he had started as an enlisted Marine, before being offered a path into the officer ranks. In military culture, that tradition carries significant respect. You've taken orders, and now you're being trusted to lead. The Marine Corps has nearly gotten him killed, but now it's offering him a future.
He sent me to JAG school in Newport, Rhode Island. I go over there, and there's 100 of us in the class. 99 of them are all captains with law school graduates. Most of them had passed the bar. They had been in ROTC in college. And me, a second lieutenant, who had been a corporal, who knows nothing, according to them, right? They look at me like,
right.
What are you doing here, kid? I mean, they're all like 25, right? And I'm like 21 at that point, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to work at it. I ended up being the class honor man. I got the highest scores.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. And I had a career. The Marine Corps almost got me killed, and then it gave me a career.
This would not be the last contradiction in Rand's life. The war that nearly took him became the institution that gave him purpose. And while Rand was building a career and trying to find his place in adulthood, his brother Ronnie was building a very different life. At first glance, it looked like the brothers were traveling in two completely different directions.
Now, Ronnie, in the meantime, Ronnie did 2 tours in Vietnam. I don't know what's wrong with him, but he didn't have much of a plan either. But when he came back, he met Edie.
Edie, the woman who would eventually become one of the most important people in the story, even though at the time nobody knew it yet. Sometimes the people who change the course of our lives arrive quietly. Not grand entrances, no announcements, just an ordinary meeting that slowly becomes something extraordinary.
I'm off on my adventures, and he runs into Edie. Edie is our mother's best friend. She is 14 years older than our mother, and on their first date, she shows up with the 3 youngest of her 7 children.
Oh my gosh.
You can't make this stuff up.
No, you really can't make this stuff up. A widowed mother of 7 children, a Vietnam vet, not exactly the beginning most people would have predicted. But somehow, it worked. Ronnie and Edie, they built a life together. A marriage that would last nearly 5 decades. A family, a home, a partnership that endured the ordinary and extraordinary moments that make up life. And over time, it became something Rand couldn't help but notice.
He never lost his faith. We were raised as Baptists. I was always the skeptical one for sure, and then because I always I didn't realize it until I got in a recovery program, that I probably blamed God for what he did to my family. So I lost it, and then in Vietnam, I'm like, if there's a God, he's got a really weird sense of humor, and I'm not dealing with it. I gave him the middle finger, basically, and walked away. That doesn't work out for alcoholics, among other people. But
2 brothers, raised in the same home, living through many of the same experiences, yet arriving at 2 very different conclusions. Ronnie held tightly to his faith. Rand spent much of his time keeping faith at arm's length. One found comfort there, the other carried questions that never seemed to go away. And over the years, that difference became part of the quiet distance between them. Not conflict, no resentment, just distance. The kind that can settle between siblings without either person noticing it even happened. Years became decades, lives moved forward, families kept growing, careers happened, and before you know it, 40 years have passed.
But we would get together, and my youngest brother and I would turn it into a party for 40 years. We never had any problems. I mean, we certainly got along, but mostly because he was very unjudgmental of me.
40 years, not estranged, not disconnected, but not truly knowing who each other was either. The kind of relationship many families understand. You love each other, you see each other, but somehow life stays mostly at the surface. Neither brother knew that was about to change. But first, we need to pause for just a moment. This episode is brought to you by Pure Energy Apothecary. One of the things I've learned through all the stories we share here is that healing often happens in small moments, quiet routines, a deep breath, or a choice to care for yourself at the end of a long day. One of my favorite ways to do this is with Pure Energy Apothecary's Magnesium Body Butter. It's become part of my evening routine, and it helps me slow down after long days of work, podcasting, and everything else life asks of us. To learn more about their handcrafted wellness products, visit pureenergyvt.com and use code PURECHANGE at checkout for 20% off your order. Now, back to Rand's story. Sometimes the biggest changes in our lives begins quietly. No dramatic moment or revelation, just the realization that something you thought would always be there suddenly isn't. For Ronnie, that loss was Edie. And for the first time in decades, Rand found himself paying closer attention to the life his brother had built.
You know, it's funny too, Heather, in the morning, Ronnie spontaneously said to me, you know, the best part about Edie, bro? I said, no, what was that? And he said, every morning when she woke up, she was smiling. She was happy to be alive. Now, they were married 47 years.
47 years. That's long enough to know someone's habits, their flaws, what they're like before coffee, and what matters most when everything else falls away. When Ronnie would talk about Edie, he didn't talk about her accomplishments or her achievements. He didn't even talk about her success. He talked about her smile.
I like to brag. I've been married for over 50 years, but the problem is it's to 4 different ladies. So, you know, not having a higher power in my life and liking alcohol too much, I would have a tendency to do things I shouldn't have been doing. And then I would be in love with two women, my wife and then my next wife. And that caused all kinds of problems. Yeah, so I just share that because it's the honest truth. Don't recommend it to anybody. I certainly talk to my grandkids about don't be like Grandpa. You let me some things, but there's some things about me that you probably shouldn't emulate. It's not the best judgment.
One of the things I really appreciate about Rand is the way that he doesn't tell his story like a hero. He tells it like a human being, a man who made mistakes, who hurt people, and a man who spent years looking for something he couldn't quite find. And standing next to his brother's marriage, he couldn't help but notice the difference.
And so Ronnie was talking about that, and I was thinking, my God, what do you find? I've been married 4 times. None of my wives will wake up every morning happy. It just never happens.
It's a surprisingly honest moment. It's not jealousy. It's not even regret exactly. More like the recognition that the realization someone you love may have discovered something you've been searching for your entire life. And then November of 2017 came.
You just had a fantastic relationship with her. And then when she passed in November 2017, he was pretty much devastated. He took care of her 6 years because she had a stroke 6 years before, and it put her in a wheelchair, and she never got better.
For 6 years, Ronnie became a caregiver, the kind of role that changes a person, the kind of love that asks for everything you've got. Day after day, year after year, watching the one you love the most slowly become more dependent on you. knowing there's no fixing it, only showing up. And when Edie died, the loss wasn't sudden, it was profound. The house was quieter, the routines disappeared, and the woman who had been beside him for nearly half a century was gone. Something shifted, not just for Ronnie, but for Rand too. Because while his brother was learning how to live without the woman he loved, Rand was facing a battle all on his own, one that followed him for most of his life.
And then I ended up getting sober, which is another whole story. I had to go into a reprogram, and then I did make a connection with a higher power that saved my buttocks.
For listeners who might be unfamiliar with recovery, sobriety isn't simply about stopping drinking. It's often about rebuilding an entire life, your identity, relationships, trust, purpose, and sometimes faith. For Rand, recovery brought him back to something he'd spent years keeping at a distance. Not because someone convinced him, not even because life suddenly became easier, but because he found himself willing to ask different questions.
And it changed my life in ways that are just, this happened and that happened. It's like unbelievable what happened when I got sober. It's been 12 years now on May 5th this year.
A stronger marriage, a different relationship with himself, a different relationship with God. The pieces of his life were beginning to settle into place. Not perfectly, life rarely works that way, but differently. And sometimes differently is enough.
I've been with the same woman now for over 25 years. We've been married the last 10 years or so. And, it changed everything. Oh my God, it was so amazing.
It's tempting to look back at a life and imagine that the turning points were obvious, that people knew they were standing at a crossroads while it happened. But most of the time, they don't. Most of the time, life is just life, until one conversation changes everything. And for Rand and Ronnie, that conversation was coming. Neither brother could have known that grief, recovery, faith, and a lifetime of experiences were quietly leading them toward the same place. A trailhead, a big mountain, and an idea that sounded completely ridiculous.
And when I talked to him on the phone, he mentioned, I think I'm gonna do the Appalachian Trail.
The Appalachian Trail, more than 2,200 miles stretching from Georgia to Maine, 14 states, mountains, weather, injuries, complete exhaustion, a journey most people would never seriously consider attempting, especially not in their 70s.
And I thought, that's insane.
And honestly, it kind of was. One brother was grieving the loss of a woman he'd loved for nearly 50 years. The other was rebuilding his life after addiction. Neither man was looking for an adventure, at least not the way most people think about adventure. The parts of their stories that seemed separate at the time were quietly moving them toward the same destination. Not Georgia, not even the trailhead, but each other. Next time on Change Happened, Then What? Two brothers stand at the southern end of the Appalachian Trail, more than 2,000 miles stretched out in front of them. Neither knows what waits beyond the first mountain, only that the first step is about to be taken. Today's episode was written, edited, and produced by me, Heather Holt, with supervision and a lot of interruptions from Waylon and Dalton at Holt Hill Studios. And if today's story connected with you, I'd love to invite you to join this month's What Changed Me challenge. You'll find all the details on our website at changehappenedpodcast.com. And while you're there, don't forget to sign up for our monthly email list. No junk, no spam, just a little extra love in your inbox once a month. Until next week, keep finding your way.
The heart must break to learn its beat. The loss must burn to make us sweet. The climb must hurt to lift the soul. The fight must forge the shining whole. So welcome, wait and call it grace. No progress blooms without the brave.